Hello, my friends, and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 292. In this episode today, we're going to cover two distinct topics, but there's a distinct connection between them as well. First up is artificial intelligence. I surveyed the Genealogy Gems Premium members, and they said by far this was their number one pick for a topic that they want to learn more about this year. And we did just that in our recent Elevenses with Lisa Livestream show. So that's one of the perks of being a premium member is you get to participate in that show. It runs about a half hour, 40 minutes. It's live. We have an interactive chat. We have a whole new platform, which has really been exciting. And we had folks calling in live. We talked about several different items. And primarily, I want to bring to you this segment where I discussed artificial intelligence. This will give you a taste of what we're doing in that show, but also I think it just lays a good foundation for all of us as we move forward in the coming year and figure out how and whether to integrate it into our genealogy research. So we'll be talking about that. And then I've invited Sunny Morton back to the show. Now, she's an author and she has written articles for Family Tree magazine. She used to write here at Genealogy Gems. And I thought we'd just pick her brain on how to write a really good story, how to really be a good storyteller. And so we just kind of wanted to explore that topic a little bit. And where the connection between these two topics comes together is that many people are using artificial intelligence to write some of their family history. So I'm going to ask her about that in this episode. But first up, AI and your genealogy research. Okay, well, let's talk about our number one topic from our survey that we put out to the community. What is highest on our mind in terms of genealogy research? And that is really the impact of artificial intelligence, AI, on genealogy research. This has been around for a while. We all know this is not necessarily new. It started early on. We heard probably the term machine learning more than we heard AI, but genealogy websites have been using it for quite some time. Ancestry.com, MyHeritage.com, all the big websites have been incorporating machine learning into their indexing, into their delivery of records, into how they're computing DNA results. And so we've seen that for quite a while, but there has clearly been a huge uptick in artificial intelligence and really the role that it's playing across our life, right? Not just certainly within genealogy. So while the world is kind of grappling with what does all this AI mean to them, we as genealogists are kind of wrestling with how to use it. Should we use it? What's the best practice for using it? So we can start with, first of all, let's just all get up to speed because everybody's at a different place when it comes to all this. What is AI? In some ways I kind of feel like Rip Van Winkle, waking up from a long sleep. When I was going through my cancer journey this last year, it's like I just kind of tuned out of a lot of stuff. So I've really been deep diving back into this to get up to speed with what's going on. And it's really interesting to hear not only how much it's evolved, but just in the last couple of months, how much it has evolved. So there's AI, AGI, and ASI. And I thought it would be interesting to look at real quickly how, if you ask AI, what is AI, you get some interesting answers. So I went to ChatGPT and I asked it, what is AI versus AGI versus ASI? So AI is artificial intelligence. And that's where we are now, right? So this includes the large language models, the chatbots that we've been seeing, the interaction that we're getting on genealogy websites and other types of websites. It's really everywhere. Every time you go on a website and you have a question and you jump on chat, you're really chatting with a bot, it seems like these days. So that's AI. And then there's AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. And this says it implies a system with general cognitive abilities, not limited to a single task or domain. It's kind of that next step up from what we call AI. And it says AGI remains largely theoretical and is a major research goal in the field of AI. And I think that's the one that's really accelerating right now. And then there's something called ASI, which is artificial superintelligence. Have you heard this term? Get it on your radar, because I think it's where everything is trying to go, it appears. It says ASI describes a hypothetical future stage of AI where systems surpass the brightest and most capable human minds, virtually all domains of interest. This level of intelligence would not only replicate human cognitive abilities, but would also exceed human performance in creativity, problem solving, decision making, and other activities. This is not in place yet, but you can see what they've got their eyes on in terms of developing it. So where we are right now is AI and the beginnings of the AGI stuff. As I said, I feel like I'm really just kind of coming up to speed with all of you at the same time. But interestingly, in taking on this new studio, Riverside, and the technology that it affords me here to do podcasting and videos, I thought I would share with you just my interaction with it from kind of the business side of what we do at Genealogy Gems and how I kind of ran headfirst into the impact that AI is having. So, in fact, I'll end screen share here. And so I want to let you know, when you went to my website at genealogygems.com, you saw the landing page for this video event, and we had kind of a description there where I just wrote up kind of what you would expect to find in this episode. So that's text. That's text that I wrote on the web page. So if I highlight that text and bring it into this new program called Riverside that I've been using for my live streaming, I want to show you what I discovered the other day that it could do. So I'm going to come over here. So remember, I've copied the descriptive text about this show on my computer. And I come over to Riverside and I click not record, but this new button that just popped up, AI voice. And here in the text box, I will paste the descriptive text about this episode, and you can see it's all typed there, and just click the Generate AI Voice button. And it starts processing. And I'm thinking, well, this will be interesting. Maybe there'll be some, British guy doing my, reading my text or whatever. It took about, I'd say, 10 minutes for this to process. And I went over to my recording files. I won't drag you through 10 minutes of processing here. But when it was done, it says Lisa AI, and I can download a high-quality WAV or MP3 file of this recording. And
in this first episode, I'll be diving into the results of our recent member survey, where you shared your preferences on what you want to learn to enhance your genealogy research. Then I'll demonstrate a practical example of my own of the number one area and offer a sneak peek into the engaging content we have.
Wow. Did that sound like me? That one kind of blew my mind. What do you think? So because I have been recording videos and interviews and all kinds of things using Riverside, they have a large sampling of my voice. And when we think about sampling, we think about how did AI learn, machine learning, how did it learn to do what it does on things like ChatGPT? Well, it devoured the content on the internet. That's the sample, a massive sample. And Riverside was able to recreate my voice. Now, it's interesting. Most people who I have played that for, just in talking with folks, they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds like you. Now, Bill listened to it and said, yeah, you don't talk quite that fast, although you do talk fast. And you would have taken a breath there. But just in passing, it'd be really hard to detect that that wasn't me. So I share that with you, not first and foremost to let you know you're always going to be getting me, the real deal, whether it's the audio podcast or the video podcast. And yes, they can make, you've seen the fake videos on, I'm sure, the internet as well. I think what I would want to say is that real, I think, is always going to be better than artificial. And it's interesting in reading the description of ASI that they're saying, or AGI, it was ASI, the superintelligence, that it was going to be, beyond human. And I think real is always better than artificial. That'd be my first point. And it will be real here at Genealogy Gems. I liken it to my grandma's cooking, right? So when I think about AI, I think about grandma's cooking was the real deal. It was homemade from scratch, every ingredient. I mean, except for she wasn't grinding the flour herself, but I mean, she was making it the real deal. And I remember when McDonald's came into being I think around the 70s where I was living at the time as a kid. And yes, you could get something that looked like food, acted like food. Maybe it's not as nutritious as food, but it was super fast, super easy, almost the artificial version of dinner at home. And I remember my mom saying, yeah, well, we'll do that selectively. There'll be once or twice special times, maybe on your birthday, we'll go to McDonald's and get a Happy Meal. So I think as we go forward in AI, one of the first things we want to think about is that real is still good. Your brain is still the driving force here in terms of your genealogy research. And we can be selective and careful about how we're going to be using this. Because it brings up the question, is this good or is this bad? Is it good or evil? Should I be avoiding it? And you may have seen that I have done a video, year and a half ago. It was a while back. It's on the video page at genealogygems.com, and where I showed my first interaction with a chatbot and how large language models will basically, if it can't come up with a reasonable answer, it's going to make it up. And that's what we call hallucinations, right? Because it's trying to say, what's the next logical word based on all the internet content that I've devoured? I want it to make sense and deliver it to the user. So it is not a research tool. And that's the key. It's not a research tool for that reason, in that it's not doing the kind of analytical research that you're doing. But it's terrific at language. It's terrific at many other kinds of tasks. So we can selectively use it based on what we understand about what it can do, and then use it for our advantage to be able to maybe speed up what we're doing. And, when people ask me, well, is it good or is it evil? And I think, well, it's like a knife. Is a knife good or evil? Well, on a dinner table at a lovely place setting at a dinner, it's very good and very productive. But in the hands of a killer, it's not. It's evil. So at this point, we still look at it like a tool, and it's the way in which we use it. So I often tell people, me personally, I have a very biblical worldview. And so when I think of that, it makes it very clear to me how to move forward with artificial intelligence, because it really is a long-term life issue. We're not going to get away from it at this point. So I think of it in terms of I'm going to use it for good and to help people. Me personally, I can't stop it from evolving or being what it is or being used in the wrong hands, but I can use it for good and for helping people and to move forward my genealogy research. Long term, let's just get philosophical here. What's going to happen with this? Well, I don't know about you, but I think history tells us there will always be people who want to use things for the wrong reasons and in the wrong ways. So that's very possible. What we have to keep our eyes on when it comes to ASI, and it's not here yet, is that ASI itself may want power. Right? People use things for the wrong reasons, in the wrong ways to get power. Will artificial intelligence eventually evolve to a place where it wants the decision-making power? I don't know, and it's one of those things where we have to pick and choose what we worry about today. And every time we go out to the grocery store, we're not going to worry about whether or not we're going to get hit by a car. We're just going to do our best and do good and drive carefully. So that's what we're going to do with the artificial intelligence. At least that's what I'm going to do. And I hope and encourage that you will do the same. So no matter where you currently stand on this, AI is here. We can do our best to understand it together. And I think that we're going to have fun doing that. The scope of this show isn't the whole future and what we can control. So we're not going to worry about that. But we are going to be talking about it in terms of our research. And one of the things I wanted to encourage you as we're kind of moving to the end of this segment is I was listening to Vice President Vance speaking at the AI Action Summit. It just happened this week in Paris, France. He used to work in Silicon Valley, and I've heard this saying before, and it was interesting to hear him bring it up again, but I think it's a good reminder and something we need to be thinking about. He said, if you aren't paying for the product, you are the product. And I have actually, I think, said a variation of that here when talking about Google and other tools. And the idea being, as we go forward, you're going to find I'll be talking about some stuff that's free, but I'm going to also be talking about some stuff that we pay for. And the reason is because being the product means your data. Every time you put information into a chatbot, you are sharing it, and it is gone forever. There is no retracting it, and that data is of value and sellable by other entities. So free is not always going to be the number one thing that we're looking for. We want high quality, and we want some privacy and some control. So keep that in mind as you work with, if you work with chatbots this week, whatever, just know that your information is the product, and there's no pulling it back once it's out there. And if you're a Windows user, I just upgraded to Windows 11. You might find Copilot is actually integrated now into Windows 11. So if you do Alt and a space bar on your computer, you get Copilot, which is kind of the Chat GPT of the Windows environment. Okay, I want to tell you about our first sponsor for this episode, and that's newspapers.com. Have you ever wished that you could just step back in time and see the world your ancestors lived in? Well, with newspapers.com, you really can. It's really just like having a time machine at your fingertips. With a simple search, you can explore more than 1 billion pages of historical newspapers, and they date from 1690 all the way up to 2025, from the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and beyond. You can uncover the details that bring your family history to life in birth notices, wedding announcements, and obituaries. And those are the details you're going to need to tell their story. And later in this episode, you're going to hear from Sunny Morton on just how to do that. But it's not just about the facts. It's about experiencing the moments they lived through. Imagine reading the same headlines that they saw, or finding an article about your great-grandfather's farm. Newspapers.com doesn't just show you history, it helps you feel it. Start your journey today over at newspapers.com. That's where I do my newspaper research, because sometimes the past isn't just history. It's a story, and it's waiting to be discovered. Visit newspapers.com/genealogy gems for a 20% discount on your subscription. So that's newspapers.com/genealogy gems. Sign up today, get your 20% discount, and embark on a journey of discovery. Today's episode is sponsored by MyHeritage, a global discovery platform enjoyed by 110 million people worldwide. MyHeritage has it all and offers a full-service experience that bridges your past, present, and future. MyHeritage has developed powerful genealogy tools to enrich your family tree and take your research to the next level. Receive automatic matches to family trees of fellow MyHeritage users and historical records, which provide new details that you can add to your tree. Explore 12 billion historical records to uncover fascinating new insights about your ancestors. Add new information to your family tree in one click. Check your tree for inaccuracies, colorize your black and white photos, and connect with relatives around the globe. MyHeritage makes it all possible and puts the discoveries at your fingertips. I've been colorizing some of my own personal family photos, and not only are they beautiful, but in many of the photos, it's actually been revealing more details so I can see more of my family history. Growing your family tree is easier than ever before with MyHeritage. The discoveries are out there and waiting to be made. Visit myheritage.com and try it today. That's myheritage.com. coming back to doing the show on a regular basis here at Genealogy Gems and just kind of getting a chance to get restarted, a little reboot here in terms of content, it made me think about all the content we've been able to create over the years. And if you are new to Genealogy Gems, you might not know that someone that you've heard about in genealogy circles, Sunny Morton. She is the contributing editor over at Family Tree Magazine, and she works with Your DNA Guide. She's a genealogy speaker and author. She also was here at Genealogy Gems for many years early on, and I just thought it'd be wonderful to have Sunny come back in for a second and join me and just do a little reminiscing and also, of course, get some tips for genealogists. Hi, Sunny.
Hello. I'm so excited that your show's coming back. That's awesome. I know that it's just been a tremendous resource, especially, during COVID when we really needed it. Like you had a resource for us there, and I'm glad you're bringing that back.
Yeah, it was one of those things. It was like it just kind of organically kind of came together, and it was just a wonderful time during a really difficult time. And, that's one of the things that we try to do here is just kind of keep morphing and changing, and needs change. And certainly mine have over the last couple of years, and people have been so patient, and it is so good to get back in and kind of re-engage a little more than I've been able to do in the last couple of years. And there's so many new and exciting topics out there that, of course, genealogists are really interested in. And I know that one of the things that you did so regularly for us and for me here at Genealogy Gems was writing. That's something that you do for Family Tree Magazine. You have written some books. Tell everybody, first of all, what are the books you've already published? And I know you've got a new one you're working on.
Oh, I do. So Story of My Life is one book that I published with Family Tree Magazine that's really a guided life storytelling journal where it's a workbook for capturing all your stories, or you can give it to a loved one and have them write their stories. So it's journaling prompts and memory prompts, like how to do that kind of thing. So that's a super fun book that reaches audiences everywhere. And then one that's specific for our genealogy community is how to find your family history in U.S. church records, which I published a few years ago with Harold Henderson, and has been a marvelous resource. If I say so myself, we really needed that because denominational records in the United States were one of those underutilized gems from so many different walks of religious life, so many different kinds of records about sometimes our most invisible ancestors, and they have the genealogical answers we're looking for, and they have some of the stories and the historical context. And when you look back through that religious documentary lens of what might exist on your ancestors. So that was a super fun book to write. And the one I mentioned that I'm working on right now that you mentioned is I'm writing a guide to the archives of Catholic nuns and sisters. So women religious is what they're called as a group. And they've got phenomenal archives here in the United States that tell their stories, that identify them genealogically speaking, like who were they before they were Sister Mary Agnes, and who were their parents, and even sometimes their siblings, aunts and uncles, letters that their family wrote to them that are still in the archives with pictures and mass cards and copies of their naturalization papers or their wills. And then, of course, there's the millions of people they served in schools and orphanages and hospitals, and sometimes those records still exist too. So it's not just if your relative was a sister, but was she served by a sister? So these archives can be super valuable for a lot of ways, but just like the sisters themselves, they're pretty invisible. So I've spent the last year or so writing a guide, researching and writing a guide to those archives, and that'll be out soon.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You mentioned the church records. Of course, premium members can still see your content. We've got a video, I think, on premium memberships, articles that you've written on church records. I highly recommend Sunny's book and going and checking out that content. We'll have links for this episode. And also under the stories and sharing category, Sunny has done content in the past for us. So there's some wonderful resources there. I know that you teach writing, and I would love to just tap into your brain power and have you give us some tips for genealogists who've been doing all this family history research, and they want to be able to write about it, get it out there.
Get it out there. That's so important. And yes, I'll be teaching with Kelly Bergheimer, who's the course coordinator. I'm doing and Rachel Popma. The three of us are doing a practical family history writing course this summer in person in Pittsburgh at GRIP Genealogy Institute. And the approach that we're taking is, okay, this you can come if you want to write an article in a prestigious national journal or a 300-page book, but we're really trying to work with the many, many, many people, which is most of us, who just have a good story we want to tell to our relatives, and we want to tell it in a way that they'll pay attention to it, because it's a powerful story that's meant a lot to us. But just because we've researched the story and we know it really well doesn't mean we tell it really well. So we're working on storytelling tips. We're working on, that elevator pitch. So you have, most of the time, I think that we have an opportunity to share our family stories with our relatives is that when somebody mentions it and gives us a 30-second window at the family dinner or on social, or we just have these very short, sometimes unexpected windows of opportunity to suddenly we're on stage and we need to tell a good story. And it's, well, wait a minute, let me go get my 50 pages of notes. Nope, they don't want our 50 pages of notes. They want a good story and they want it right now. So,
well, and really, honestly, isn't it 9 times out of 10, that's really the only chance you're going to get. It's not going to be telling a big hour-long speech.
Right. They don't want the hour-long PowerPoint. Yeah. They want a short story. Sure. They want to see your passion in your face. They want to be excited about it, as excited as you are. And so if I have to give some off-the-cuff tips on sharing your stories with your family members more successfully, I would focus first on the stories you're passionate about. Tell the stories that have changed you. Because if they've transformed and moved you in some way, if you're different somehow because you learned about this person or about this story, then it's part of your story too. And that will show through because you're making a personal connection with the person and with the person you're telling the story to. So I think that personal connection matters a lot. Ask yourselves, what are the stories that matter the most to me? Is it the story that I found out about my relative who, when she found out about the Great Johnstown Flood, dropped her job working in a restaurant, went to Johnstown and started working in a soup kitchen where she met her future husband? Right? Yes, that story means something to me.
And what a logical place to start is what excites you. That's a good chance it's going to be of interest to your family.
And then find that story arc. We think in terms of biographical outlines, start to finish, birth to death, everything that happened in between. But honestly, lives don't go in a story arc, do they? No. They don't start at this beautiful introductory plot moment, and then they have these lovely plot twists and a nice, convenient, climax in the story, and then wrap up neatly. That's just not how life goes. Our lives really are lots of little tiny stories, some of which happen in 5 minutes and some of which take years to unfold. And so watch for those stories that you can shape out of the historical timelines that you built. There's a story here of a relationship with a parent and a child that maybe started off and had some troubles and then it finally ended this way or whatever. So find the story in it. Who are the characters? What meaning does it have? What's the plot? Like, what happens? And then what happens? And then what happens? How does it end? It has to have an ending. The story has to have some kind of ending. You can't just leave the cliffhanger, right? Unless it's a really great one that says, you know what? I haven't figured out what happened to them next, but that's my next trip to the library. Yeah. Oh, well, then you're going to have to tell us. Ha ha. Now we've hooked you, right? So think about that in terms of storytelling. Now we're telling true stories. We're not fabricating things, but we're telling stories nonetheless. And so giving them the shape of the kind of story that we are wired to listen to and appreciate and be moved by is going to be so much more powerful.
Stay right there because next we're going to talk about the hook with Sunny Morton. Sometimes I think it's easier to find your family history than to find a way to share it in a way that your family would really be interested and enjoy it, in a way that's not going to take you forever to put it together. Well, I have a solution for you. It's our new sponsor, MyCanvas. MyCanvas.com is really the place to bring your family history to life. MyCanvas connects with your Ancestry account to help you create keepsakes, like family history books and calendars and family tree posters. They can even produce books for you that include family group sheets and pedigree charts and history timelines. Those can be really challenging to incorporate and format in a book. My Canvas makes it easy to add photos and records from Ancestry. And after you order, you can share a link with your family. They can take a look at your project online. They could even purchase a copy of it. The My Canvas products are great for gifting or displaying at family reunions. You know, it's a new year. You've got lots of birthdays and anniversaries ahead and get-togethers. So this is the perfect time to start planning and producing some of these wonderful materials from My Canvas. Pricing for these types of keepsakes that you can create start at just $30. So this is a really affordable gift and a fun and easy way to share genealogy and family history. And best of all, you can receive a 10% discount on your first My Canvas order with our special coupon code. So jot this down, GGEMS, so G Gems, all together in capital letters. Use that at mycanvas.com to get 10% off and start creating shareable, memorable legacy gifts for your family. That's mycanvas.com. Today's podcast is also brought to you by Archives, your trusted resource for researching your family history. Archives is a vast repository of historical records offering a seamless journey through your family's past. Imagine discovering long-lost relatives, exploring genealogical documents, and tracing the roots that define your story. Archives makes research quick and easy. It does it with an intuitive approach to genealogy. They keep their search tools simple, but behind the scenes, their extensive record collections are paired with powerful technology to deliver valuable results. Archives is an invaluable resource if you want to make your family history research simple and affordable. Just visit archives.com and let your family history journey begin. And let them know that Genealogy Gems sent you. Visit archives.com or head to our show notes and you'll find a link that'll take you directly there. Archives.com. You mentioned the word hook, and I'm thinking that's really something to be looking for is what's the hook? Sometimes I imagine the story doesn't need to start at square one. Hook them at an exciting place and then come back and fill up.
And then give them the backstory they need to have. Yeah. And, you know, if you like to read good novels or things, you know, any sort of storytelling, be inspired by that. That's how they start too. The opening doesn't start. If you open a really good book, it doesn't start with the sentence, "I was born on." Right? It starts with, even if someone is telling their own story, it starts with the day that this happened, right? My whole life changed because they're telling you a story.
And then you become curious. Well, how in the world did you get to that place? Yeah.
That's right. And then what happened? Yeah.
I imagine when people come into a classroom like you're going to be teaching that you might define that most people they think they know their story. They think they could tell it. But if asked and given 30 seconds to 2 minutes to tell it, they've never actually practiced that.
No, they haven't. Now, sometimes, so this reminds me of two things. Is the first is the importance of distilling that, 50 pages worth of research notes down to the 30-second to 3-minute story and practicing it. And just like you'd write a draft of something, almost write or speak a draft of it, practice it a couple of times. And even if it's like with your own family at home around the dinner table before you go to the family reunion, or with your friends, if you're out of your friends, okay, guys, I'm about to go to family reunion. I have this great story that's really magical to me and I want to tell it right. Here's my pitch, right? And practice telling it without, well, what are the things that you want to know more about? Like, what are the things you didn't care about when I just told you that story? And you can watch them too. Like, at what point did they sort of subtly look at their watches or just check for the waiter to bring them more to drink? So like you could do that. And so practice that part. But then there is also the process of, do I know the full story enough to be able to tell it? I took one of the most important courses that I ever took was a grip writing course that was on the process of using writing as to make discoveries and to say, okay, now that I'm starting to write about it, I have to put everything into a timeline. Where are the holes and where are the inconsistencies? And so using writing as a process for figuring out what the story is. And that is just a behind the scenes sort of thing. That's not your final thing that you share with everybody, but it is what you use to put all your thoughts in order.
Yeah. Something I started doing several years ago is as I'm working in a ancestors profile in my database, in the notes section, I challenge myself in one sentence, what stands out about this person? What has struck me in the research? And sometimes that's just a great place to remember, ooh, I want to pursue that later. I don't have time right now. But part of it is, it's really interesting actually to see the variety of subjects and topics and activities within a family tree, and to be able to grab that and then expand on it and write on it, or expand on it, make a little video about it, or just do more research. So, we can constantly kind of prompt ourselves and start practicing telling that
Yes.
in short bits.
Well, sure. And it may be that the thing that hooks us on the story, if we've already got our answer, what's going to hook other people?
Yeah.
The only time I ever found my grandmother listed under her own name in the city directory is when she was a telephone operator in the late 1940s. Well, what did that involve? Well, because I was taught by you, I went on YouTube and I looked for
Yeah.
I looked for anything about that, and I thought I'd find a documentary. I found training videos
Oh,
on what
interesting.
that were from the 1940s and 50s that were telling these young ladies how to be a good telephone operator. And this was the days before 911 service, and so they were the 911
Yeah.
service, and that was part of their training. And I had no idea that that was part of what they would do. So that's part of the story. Well, did you know that like these 18-year-old girls fresh out of high school were doing the jobs that highly trained professionals do in moments of crisis now? They were doing these jobs. They were doing important work. Stay on the line, stay with them,
Yeah.
comfort them, give them good tips, and make sure that in the background you've called help and it's on its way. So like that's a story right there. And it's not a story of my grandmother was born here, my grandmother died here, but my grandmother is the star of that show, and I'm showing her in a way that most people don't see their grandparents.
And
We
you're
don't.
really, by watching a
Yeah,
video like that, you're stepping into their
yeah, you
shoes.
are.
That's something she would have sat down and watched. And it's amazing how much of that kind of internal content is out there. All the newsreels, all the internal corporate training videos, and on such a wide variety of topics. Seems like most stuff has been digitized now, but I mean, there's new videos coming out every day, so it's amazing. I think of census enumerators. We go and look at the instructions because that really kind of gets us in the mindset of
Right.
thinking about how they walked down the street and did what they did.
And did they cross the street or did they go around the corner? And yeah, you're right.
And
So
why?
all of those,
Yeah.
and why? Yeah, all of those how-to resources that were not made for us, but were made for the people
Yeah.
we're researching, that can give us, you're right, it gives us a window into what they were thinking and why they were doing things the way they were doing them.
Well, you're a writer and you teach writing. I, of course, have to ask you, what do you see as the impact of artificial intelligence and AI on writing these days for genealogists?
That's a good question that a lot of people way smarter than I am are answering out there. But my response so far, first of all, is that we're already using AI. If
Yeah.
we're putting our trees in a place like Ancestry or Family Search, and then you go to the part of their profile where it shows their family story or their personal story, that has been generated by using artificial intelligence. So they've already written a skeletal biography for you. And sometimes that can help you realize, oh, wait, that's not right. Right.
Yeah.
So you can use it as sort of a mirror where you kind of hold it up and say, how am I doing? If it's a tool that's meant to do that well. But the way that I think about AI and the way I've been taught to is that treat AI like a reasonably competent assistant that you give an assignment to, and then you check their work carefully. But then, it's crucial and helpful. It's like, oh, this content right here, this is great, and it inspires me to go down this direction a little bit more. But always, if you're feeding things to AI to help you tell family stories, always collaborate with AI. Don't just take their word for it. Make sure that you're going in and fact checking everything and then making it better, and then asking AI to take the version you've just made better and see if they've got a more compelling way to say it, or a more folksy way to say it, if that's the audience you're going for, or a more scholarly way to say it. So go back and forth with it, understanding both its abilities and its disabilities.
Yes. AI was, of course, the number one topic of the survey that I did recently. People wanted to learn about. So we'll be talking about tools like Transcribus and ChatGPT and Gemini, and the ways in which we can use AI to maybe generate outlines or summarize. You were talking about, having hundreds of pages. It can be summarized or outlined very quickly. But also understanding the pitfalls that in today's world of AI is that these large language models, they want to fill that story out one way or another. So if it can't do it with the facts, it just moves from there into
that's right.
fiction. And so, we'll be tackling all of those topics because the truth is, good or bad, it's here.
It is.
And I think one of the other things that I'm really interested in, and probably something that you're thinking about, is being able to spot it as well.
Yes.
So being able to spot AI written materials, and also how to cite the source for it, or do we need to, or in what way do we need to help our reader know this part was done with AI, but unless it's doing all the writing, I'm thinking we don't necessarily cite the source that we used Excel for something, or that we used Word, or that we used Grammarly. So it's finding,
finding that appropriate and right, that accountability and that ethical, that where ethically is the right place to do that. Really great questions, and I'm so glad you're going to be tackling those with all of your listeners.
Well, it's going to be an interesting year coming up here on the show, and it's wonderful to have you, somebody who's been here with us since practically the beginning. Wonderful to have you come back and visit with us, and we love your content, and we can keep track of what you're doing over at sunnymorton.com, correct?
That's right.
Awesome. Good to see you, Sunny. We'll just plan on seeing you again soon, okay?
Okay. Love it.
Thanks for joining me. You will find the show notes page for this episode over at genealogygems.com. Just look for podcast in the menu. Go to the Genealogy Gems podcast list, and you'll find them all there numerically. This is number 292. And if you are a premium member, you can download the show notes for this episode as a PDF. It's kind of a nice little cheat sheet, and it's absolutely ad-free, really handy for future reference. So check that out if you're a member. And if you're not, you can also learn more about membership over at our website. And you'll also find a button for our newsletter. If you're not on the free email newsletter, I highly recommend it. It's a great way to stay up to speed with what's going on around here. We'll announce each new piece of content as it's published. And the bonus is you get a free ebook with your first email. So check that out. Thank you so much for listening, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.